The United Nations Secretary-General says he's deeply disappointed by Russia's withdrawal from the Black Sea grain deal. He says it's a lifeline for global food security. The agreement guarantees the safe passage of food from the Black Sea to many parts of the world. Our diplomatic editor, James Bays, reports now from the UN in New York.
Until the last moment, the UN Secretary-General had been trying to persuade Russia to stay in the deal, but President Putin didn't even bother to reply to his latest letter. As he addressed reporters, his mood was grim.
I deeply regret the decision by the Russian Federation to terminate the implementation of the Black Sea Initiative, including the withdrawal of Russian security guarantees for navigation in the northwestern part of the Black Sea. This initiative has ensured the safe passage of over 32 million metric tons of food commodities from Ukrainian ports.
Inside the Security Council, Western countries were united in their condemnation of Russia.
Let us be clear. Russia's actions are taking food out of the mouths of the poorest people across Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America.
And now, with announcement that it will withdraw from the Black Sea Grain Initiative, Moscow is threatening even more people, more children, with starvation.
Russia decided not to attend the meeting at foreign minister level, instead sending its deputy ambassador. He said the deal was terminated, but added this.
The Russian Federation will stand ready to consider its resumption only when concrete results are achieved, rather than promises and assurances from Western capitals.
Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba told me there are different views here at the UN about whether the deal is completely dead.
There are two schools of thought now. I can conclude that from the conversation I have had. Some are far less optimistic and others are slightly more optimistic.
I'm told that during his meeting with the UN Secretary-General, Mr. Kuleba raised a suggestion by his boss, President Zelensky, that perhaps the deal could continue, operated by Ukraine, Turkey and the UN without the participation of Russia. Senior UN officials, though, are very doubtful about that. They say that no ship company or insurance company would want to risk their vessel coming under Russian attack. James Bays, Al Jazeera, at the United Nations.
Well, let's bring in Rasul Serdar. He joins us live now from Istanbul. Rasul, James was just saying there are two schools of thought on if this deal is dead. It does seem that the Turkish side, though, is hopeful that it can be held together. What do you make of the diplomatic efforts?
Indeed, the Turkish side is still hopeful that this deal can be held together. Just yesterday, President Erdogan, right ahead of flying to Saudi Arabia after Russia's decision, has said that he's still hopeful that this deal can work. And he said that President Putin of Russia, he said he believes that he wants to continue this humanitarian corridor through the Black Sea. And he says that the diplomatic efforts are going to continue and the foreign ministers of two countries are going to meet. So today, we have seen a phone call between the Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan and the Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov. And after that, there has been a statement released. And according to the statements, they say that both foreign ministers have discussed the ways to explore new ways for the Russian grain to be exported through a route that is not susceptible to Kiev or Western sabotage. So from this statement, what we understand is that now Russia and Turkey, they're trying to create a new parallel agreement. So the first agreement between Turkey, United Nations and Ukraine that will allow the Ukrainian grain to be exported through the Black Sea without the participation of Russia. And the parallel route is going to be between Turkey and Russia that is going to secure Russian grains to be exported to the international market. So, of course, how they are going to secure these roads and whether the Western sanctions are still going to remain as an obstacle or not, this is not clear at this moment. But we know that the diplomatic efforts are underway to create two parallel roads. One of them is carrying Russian grain and the other carrying Ukrainian grain. So President Erdogan, the day after tomorrow, he is going to be back in the country. And he says that once he's back in the country, he is going to have talks with President Putin of Russia. And based on that, we will see whether these diplomatic efforts are going to produce any concrete result.
Well, speaking of which, Rasul, Ankara is one of the rare NATO members that still has good ties with Moscow. Are these recent developments, particularly Russia's decision to actually pull out of the deal, affecting that relationship?
Indeed, Turkey and Russia has very much delicate relations now. Just recently, we have seen that President Zelensky of Ukraine has visited Turkey, and Turkey has President Erdogan explicitly announced his support for Ukraine's membership to NATO. And on the top of that, he has also given 6 senior Azov commanders to Zelensky, and they flew to Ukraine. So this has, of course, caused reactions from Moscow, and Moscow says that Turkey has violated the deal. According to the deal, they say these Azov commanders were supposed to stay in Turkey till the war is concluded. And just 2 days after that, President Erdogan was in Lithuania attending the NATO summit, and he has given the green light to Sweden's accession to NATO. So right after that, now we have seen that Russia pulled out from this grain deal, which is quite important for Turkey politically and economically. So now both sides are meticulously careful not to deteriorate the relations, because they are having very sophisticated and multi-layered relations in the East Mediterranean, in Libya, in Syria, in Caucasus, in Balkans, and in Black Sea. So that's why there's a lot at stake from both sides. However, we can say that the tension is gradually increasing between the two capitals, but whether it's going to reach to a point to be a rupture or not is not clear yet.
Rasul Sada there with all the latest for us from Istanbul. Thank you, Rasul. Well, let's now go to Yulia Shapovalova. She joins us with the view from Moscow. Yulia, the international community, as we know, has overwhelmingly condemned Russia's decision to leave the deal. But Moscow feels that its side has just not been upheld?
Well, Dmitry Peskov, Kremlin spokesman, has revealed Kyiv uses the maritime area allocated for the implementation of the grain deal for military purposes. He didn't elaborate on details, though. We can say the work on the deal continues here, despite it has been terminated by Russia. According to Peskov, after withdrawing from the grain deal, Russia is ready to replace the Ukrainian grain with its own and supply countries in need with it for free. As for Russia's supplies of grain to Africa, they will be discussed at the highest level at the forthcoming Russia-Africa Forum in St. Petersburg at the end of July, while the leaders of Russian and Turkish diplomacy, as it was mentioned, the Russian and Turkish foreign ministers discussed options for supplying grain to the countries most in need, plus they discussed the situation around Ukraine. It's interesting, though, but President Putin is not planning contacts with Turkish President Erdogan, according to his press secretary Peskov, even though earlier, of course, we heard from the Turkish president himself that he was planning to meet with President Putin in Turkey in August. So basically, the grain deal dominates the political as well as media sphere, the grain deal agenda here. So it's being discussed quite widely.
Yulia, there were also denials that pulling out of the grain deal was in response to the attack that we saw on the Kerch Bridge linking Russia to Crimea. But I see the Defense Ministry has said that there has now actually been other retaliation.
Yeah, indeed. The last night's strikes with high-precision weapons on port infrastructure facilities in the Ukrainian city of Odessa are the retaliation strikes for the Crimean Kerch Bridge. That's what we've heard from Dmitry Peskov, Kremlin spokesman. And the Russian Defense Ministry indeed actually said the same, calling the night missile attacks on Odessa and Nikolaev a retaliation strike. And according to the ministry, the strike was delivered on the facilities where terrorist attacks were allegedly prepared against Russia. And as a result of the strike, Ukrainian fuel storage facilities were destroyed, as well as unmanned boats, which were allegedly supposed to be used against Russia. So all that is according to the Defense Ministry, of course. And as we remember, after the latest Kerch Bridge attack, President Putin promised a response without specifying what kind of response it would be. He just said that the Russian Ministry of Defense was preparing their proposals how to respond. And also, according to the Kremlin, the authorities are now preparing their proposals how to improve the security on the Crimean Kerch Bridge.
Yulia Shapovalova there for us with the view from Moscow. Thank you, Yulia.